guys, this is our very first interview for Booktoberfest, and we are extremely lucky to be kicking it off with a bang. We have the amazing Sandi Parsons here with us, and she has agreed to let me interview her. I'm sure most of you have heard of her, but if you've been living under a rock your whole life, Sandi is an author who has been featured in the West Australian Scholastic Teachers Bookshelf, Perfect Now, and much more. She has achieved all this while juggling being an author and a mum, and she lives with cystic fibrosis. I find Sandi to be an inspirational author because she works with and encourages the next generation of young writers of all ages through talks at schools and workshops, and she lives with cystic fibrosis and still finds the time to write her books and her blog to get her message out there about cystic fibrosis awareness. She also advocates for cystic fibrosis and organ donation. And in one of her books, The Mystery of the 65 Roses, Sandi incorporates cystic fibrosis awareness in a fun and mysterious environment so kids can learn a bit about cystic fibrosis in a fun and non-daunting way. Sandi, thank you so much for letting me grill you.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. I hope you've been having a good week.
Always a good week.
Are you ready to get started?
Let's get started.
What's it like trying to juggle cystic fibrosis and being an author and a presenter? Because it must be a bit difficult some days.
Yeah, there's some days you have to choose what you're going to do and things that you sacrifice. So there is an outer front that goes out to the world that's not necessarily what is at home. So I always say that I'm a slow writer, but the reality is that sometimes being chronically ill means I just physically can't write. So sometimes that's the thing that has to take the back burner.
Exactly. I can definitely relate in some instances. It's like, what do you do? Writing or taking care of your health?
Yeah, so I've learnt that my rest is when I read. So sometimes I can appear very lazy because I might read for a week, but that's my way of making my body slow down so that I can do all those other things.
Sorry, let me just get that. It went down again. Well, you're definitely not lazy. I think you're very amazing.
Thank you.
And I love the idea of your book, The Mystery of the 65 Roses. And where did the inspiration for that come from?
It came from, my writing journey is a little bit different to most people. I was running a library for teachers at the time, and I could see there were all these other diseases that had packages and information so that teachers could take it away and they could study stuff. And there was nothing for CF. So I marched into the CF Association with all my research and said, we need to make our own book. And they said, who's going to write it? And I said, I will. So I had a contract for my book before I'd written a word, which doesn't usually happen. But that said, it then took 6 years to make, because first I had to come up with the idea, then I had to write it, and then we had to find the illustrator. So it was a long process and a new set of lungs.
That's really incredible how you took that initiative to do that, to get a book about cystic fibrosis out there.
Yeah, it said it's designed not so much as something that a kid might pick up and read themselves, but as a springboard for teachers to use it in the classroom as a discussion point.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Where did you get the inspiration for your characters in your books? They look very fascinating.
So all of my male little boy characters always have a name that starts with J, and they're always red-headed, and that's because it's my son Jaron in many different formats. So at the time that I was writing The Mystery of the 65 Roses, he was running around leaping to conclusions after spying on people. So that book is essentially a snapshot of what he is like when he was 10. And that carries over into all the other books. So in Pepsi, it's Josh is Jaron when he was younger.
That's really cool. And I'm pretty sure Pepsi, the problem puppy, is Pepsi Parsons?
Yeah, so Pepsi was a real dog. So what I found with Pepsi is I started saying things like Pepsi Parsons went past fast, Pepsi Parsons pounced, Pepsi Parsons peed, and there's another one. And I thought I was going to write a picture book on Pepsi, but my bouncing, pouncing puppy needed more words than a picture book could cater for, so she got her own chapter book.
That's really cool. I find the best inspiration for characters is like people you actually know, so you can build a better character off that. Did you always want to be an author?
I think there was a moment when I was little where I realised that was actual real people writing books, and then when I realised that it was, well, this is what I want to do too. So yes, once that realisation that there was real people writing books came, that was something I wanted to do.
I can definitely relate to that. I've always wanted to be an author.
And now you are.
Exactly. Anyone can achieve something.
Yeah.
You do a lot of workshops at schools. Have you ever had a really embarrassing moment?
Not so much embarrassing, but an awkward moment. And that was at my very, very first one. And so what I used to do at the Mystery of the 65 Roses workshops was, it was a tandem, how to write a book, the process behind it, and education about cystic fibrosis. And because they were older primary school audience, I used to just always leave it as I got new lungs. And on the very first one, I had a little girl put her hand up who said, "Where do they get the lungs from? Are they plastic?" And I hadn't at that point prepped an answer because I hadn't expected to have to talk about that to primary school students. I was concentrating on the CF side of things. So yeah, there was a moment pause before I came up with something really quickly. But now I do have an answer for that one if it came up again.
That sounds really awkward because it's like, yes, I've got all the answers down. Oh crap, they answer this, they ask this, what do I do?
Yeah.
It's always like...
And it's obviously too, is there was an awareness that this child had been sheltered to think that replacement organs came and were manufactured. So yeah, there was an awkwardness there.
Yeah, that sounds very awkward. When you are a super rich and famous author, is there anything frivolous that you would just like to spend your money on for no apparent reason?
I don't know if it's frivolous, but I would like to go into school libraries that have no budgets and assess what they have and just buy them books.
That's really awesome.
Just because I said I like buying books, but I just think there's not enough understanding of what libraries do. Their budgets are being cut. So yeah, that was something, if I had the money, that I would just go and do.
That's really awesome that you would do that for some libraries because, yeah, their budgets are being cut.
Yeah.
So now we're into the speed questions, so they're just as fast as you can.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
What are you writing at the moment?
The Great Ned Head Heist, which is another Own Voices book. So it features a mystery, and it also features my main character, Dara. She wants to be friends with the cool kids, but she also doesn't want to tell them that she has CF. So the second message, apart from the mystery, is the friends that you want are not always the friends that you need.
Yes. What's your favourite ice cream flavour?
Banana.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating. Never heard banana flavour before. What's one of your favourite short stories or books you've written?
So a lot of my memoir essays are short stories, so in a way, it would be a cross between The Long Walk, which is an Own Voices story, and Don't Have a Bird, which is essentially a love letter to my best friend.
How long does it usually take you to write one of your books or short stories?
So Mystery of the 65 Roses was 6 years from Where to Go. Pepsi was 3 years, but I wrote the first draft in 3 months. So that was the fastest I'd ever written a draft. Whereas Don't Have a Bird, I've essentially been writing for 18 years. So it varies from book to book with me.
Yeah, it's kind of the same because it's like, it depends on the genre because you might be skilled in doing certain things and like that's why you can write faster in some, and then it's like...
Well, I made the mistake with Pepsi. I read the first chapter to a year 3 class and they asked for the next chapter the next week and I didn't have a next chapter. So there was that pressure each week to have, which worked really, really well for me, but I've never been able to recreate that.
That sounds really tough. I could never do that. I'm a very, very slow writer.
The good part was I was getting feedback from my target audience as I wrote it. So yeah, it was...
Well, that's actually really cool.
It was really cool.
Who is your favourite or most inspirational author?
So favourites are a cross between Anne McCaffrey, because of The Dragon Riders of Pern, and my favourite author at the moment would probably be J. Christoph, but that's because I love the Nevernight Chronicles so much. Not for you, not yet, no. Too many sticky notes.
Okay.
But my most inspirational author would be when I was 16, I found a book that had been written by someone else with CF. And it was partly her autobiography and partly her short stories that she had written. And that, to me, was the first time I'd read something by someone else who had CF. And it also made me realise that I could do it too.
That's really awesome. Cool. Do you prefer cats or dogs?
You have to ask.
Yes.
Pepsi the problem puppy. Do you still have to ask?
Nope. Do you prefer ebooks or hard books?
I don't mind either for reading, but for keeping, I prefer the hard copy. So if it's something that I'm going to keep and reread, hard copy. If it's just something I want to read, I'm happy with an electronic copy.
And what's the hard copies? You can collect them.
Yes, and have pretty looking shelves.
Where's your favourite place to write?
I'm introverted in my writing, so I like to be at my own computer, at my own desk, and with quiet. So that means I can't even have my husband around because I'm always aware that he would be asking questions. Whereas the dogs are fine because I can read things out loud to them, but the husband, no. On my own, at my desk.
Unless it's the dogs.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first book you ever read or your favourite childhood book?
I don't know if it's the first book I ever read, but I've got two very early memories of reading. And one is my mum reading a picture book and my mum saying, you know, you can read that inside your head. And that was a lightning bolt moment. And the other is that I carried, and it might have been around the same time, the big copies of Dot and the Kangaroo, but it had the movie photos in it. So I have a lot of memories of carting that around, showing it to everyone. So I guess that was my favourite childhood book.
That sounds really cool. What's your biggest achievement so far?
Do you mean publishing?
Personal publishing?
Publishing, it would probably be my article in Mind Food. Although I'm really proud of the fact that I self-published Pepsi from woe to go myself and learnt how to do the whole process. And personal, it would probably be that I'm still standing and I have a child, which back when I was born was something that was inconceivable. So yeah, those two.
That's really... Thank you for sharing that. That must be very hard to share.
No.
No.
I'm kind of proud of the fact that I was one of the groundbreakers for women to go on and have babies. Because back when I did it, there weren't very many success stories. And it caused a lot of controversy, but it paved the way for a lot more people to go on to have babies. So that's a good thing.
That's really, really cool for you to do that. Do you have any big goals for the future or any new writing being released soon?
I do have something that I can't talk about, so I have to be really cryptic and say I had a phone call, but I have no contract, so I'm really excited about something coming up, and you'll just have to wait.
Damn it, I want to know. And do you have any advice for young writers?
There's a lot of advice for people that says you need to write every day. I'm a writer who doesn't write every day. So that would be my advice is don't listen to all the advice on writing. Find the advice that works for you.
That's very good advice because some people can't write every day. I'm one of those people. Can't write every day. Need to write when I get ideas. Thank you so much for letting me interview. It has been amazing.
Well, thank you for having me.
I will post some links to your website down below so people can see what you do. And please like and share so we can spread the message of how amazing Sandi is.
And Amani, who's pretty amazing too.
Thank you.